Right now, we have former Deputy Chief of Staff for Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, Caroline Zier, and political White House reporter Maya Ward. Actually, Caroline, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, and if I didn't, please correct me. So, Maya, you just heard that NBC is reporting direct talks between Ukraine and the U.S. are on hold. How big a development is that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's a shock after what we saw yesterday. I mean, it was unclear when Zelensky left the White House what was going to be next. I mean, Trump essentially said that Zelensky had posted this on Truth Social, that Zelensky is not ready for peace and that he can come back when he is ready. And so, the idea was that, Ukraine would turn over some of these profits from its critical mineral sector in exchange for continued U.S. support, now 3 years into the war. It's unclear if that is still on the table, but it's definitely, after yesterday, things are definitely unclear.
Yeah. Caroline, you traveled to Ukraine with Secretary Austin several times during the war. What is your reaction to what you saw in the Oval Office yesterday?
Dismay, in a word. It was head spinning and embarrassing. The U.S. is a global leader. We have been since the end of World War II, underpinning the world order and global security. And what we saw yesterday in the Oval Office was a clear abdication of U.S. responsibility. The Vice President and the President of the United States cornered the president of Ukraine, who has been fighting for his country's sovereignty for 3 years, tooth and nail, with help from the United States, from Europe, from 50 countries who we, the United States, had brought together. And this was a watershed moment. I think it will be a before and after sort of day that we talk about. And that meeting in the Oval was definitely a significant departure from the leadership.
Oh, listen, it's something many people around the world are not soon going to forget. But Caroline, Ukraine will almost certainly keep fighting regardless of U.S. support. Last week, President Trump implied that Kyiv would fall in 3 weeks if Europe didn't sign off on terms for the country's surrender. Do you have a sense of what the current state is on the battlefield? Is Russia winning the war as Trump claims?
I would not characterize Russia as winning the war, and I have always thought the Ukrainian armed forces and President Zelensky are best positioned to describe what's happening on the battlefield. My own assessment is that Russia is making grinding incremental progress in the east, retaking some territory in Kursk. That's the region in Russia that Ukraine made some territorial gains last summer. But those incremental gains on Russia's part are coming at extraordinary cost in terms of men and materiel. And that's why you see Russia reaching out to North Korea for troops, reaching out to Iran for weapons. Those are signs of conventional weakness on Putin's part, not signs of strength. And at the same time, we've seen that the Ukrainians are able to absorb the capabilities, the training that the United States, Europe, and 50 countries have provided, and have fought with incredible bravery, holding off a much larger military. So I do not count Ukraine out, but what they will need, and I think this is core to any peace through strength type of deal that I think the administration wants, they will need continued support from the international community so that they can defend themselves.
Yeah. Maya, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent claimed that Zelensky wanted to reset after that episode in the Oval Office. He wanted to stay to sign that agreement. But White House officials demanded that he leave. What are you hearing about all that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this was just a stunning moment. I mean, the reaction around the world has been, incredible. I mean, among Ukraine's supporters, both in Washington and around the world, there was really this, reaction of horror in ways, and this feeling that Russia was the winner of yesterday's meeting. We even had talked to some sources who felt like it could have been a setup of sorts. So you have different opinions really about how this came to be. I mean, Trump supporters and of course officials in the White House really saw this, as this demonstration from Trump as showing American power and this America First mantra that he really ran on. And then, of course, the Russians, I mean, they loved how it went down. We saw that in some of the responses, but I think everyone, regardless of where they stood and what their take was, agreed that it was jaw-dropping.
What happens to the mineral agreement now, Maya? I mean, is the White House saying it's dead, or are there signs it could be revived? And if so, is that the potentially only path to an end to the war?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it is unclear where this goes next with the White House. I mean, Trump said Zelensky is not ready for peace. He can come back when he is ready for that. But that being said, I mean, this mineral deal, it was not a deal that was going to end the war. So, maybe there is another path. We're going to have to wait and see. But after that heated exchange yesterday, I don't imagine we're going to see another immediate convening of Trump and Zelensky. Again, we see Zelensky, now in London having talks with European leaders, and it'll be interesting what comes out of that tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be watching that closely. So, Caroline, one of the things Zelensky tried to get through to Trump is that this isn't just about Ukraine, but potentially about Europe and, by extension, global security. So if a deal is struck on terms that are favorable to Russia, and if the U.S. normalizes relations with Russia, what does that mean for our long-term national security interests?
If the United States and Russia normalize relations and do so absent a larger normalization architecture that includes our allies and partners, so Europe and Ukraine, and in some way would need to bring along the rest of the global community, because allies and partners in Asia are also watching what happens. I think you will see that Putin is the winner at the end of the day, just as he was the winner out of the meeting in the Oval yesterday. Putin has a long track record of running through any red lines, violating terms of ceasefires, invading neighbors, and there's no reason to think that normalized relations between the United States and Russia will prevent him from continuing that pattern of behavior. And I would fully expect that he gets what he wants, which is a weaker NATO if we retreat, and a general retrenchment of the United States from European security. And the other winner out of this, of course, would be China and other adversaries. China has been watching what the United States, Europe, and Ukraine do on the battlefield for the last 3 years, and are very keenly interested in seeing a weaker security architecture there, because a weaker arrangement there is weaker in other regions as well.